Guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we'll look at a game that got barely any attention upon its release. Despite belonging to a noteworthy franchise and a heavily populated genre, the game offers you cinematic battles and a tongue-in-cheek story narrating the adventures of the mobile infantry as they battle to save humanity and win the bug war. Starship Troopers Terran Command is one of the pleasant gaming experiences I've had this year, where a great novel written by Robert A. Heinlein and a fantastic movie directed by Paul Verhoeven are mixed into the format of a real-time strategy game. A galactic conflict that will determine the fate of humans, providing a victory or extinction. The presentation of Terran Command will seem familiar to anyone who enjoyed the 1997 sci-fi classic, featuring surrealist presentation of political and societal interests through the lens of state-sponsored media. Something worthy of notice is that the novel and the film only have a few similarities, while the presentation of the stories and characters is outstandingly different as well. The game is introduced in the battle for Klendafu after you enter the name of your infantry division and travel your way through the UI that resembles a movie menu. This choice continues through story progression, as every mission is not predated by a military briefing, but a broadcast that resembles propaganda, emphasizing a grand narrative for humanity's sake. This is more evident when you realize you are not an avatar or established character in the world, instead an extension of two characters, these being Colonel Hawthorne and the lieutenant in the game. This assures the player that we are merely a spectator, as we are likely to be watching a documentary or captured war footage from the division we entered in the menu. You follow the soldiers to the theater in Kolasha, a mining planet under arachnic attack, henceforth requiring military intervention from the mobile infantry. The story only develops in the intervals between missions as in the game. The story only develops in the intervals between missions, as the in-game banter does not develop any character considerably, rendering them caricatures for Federation use. This ends up holding these breaks as exposition for in-game events or flavor in cinematics to maintain the absurd presentation Verhoeven managed in the original film. If you enjoy strategy games and play them a lot, you realize that many have campaigns as glorified tutorials, but Terran Command only provides singular content. I can assume they wanted to emulate the presentation in StarCraft or Command & Conquer, but their lack of personalization and interjection from characters makes this quite uneventful. Gameplay is an area where they managed to capture an essential part of what Starship Troopers represents well in the original novel, that being military fiction more akin to Tom Clancy novels rather than satirized war films trying to be anti-war. Keeping the impersonal barriers of the presentation, you don't need to build bases or manage finite resources to mass-produce combinations of units. Instead, you're relegated to calling units from orbital drops as you reinforce or rebuild the forces needed to complete the objectives. The resources you are given are preserved to logistics like supplies, meaning you can only deploy as many units as you can maintain on the battlefield. The other resources being war support, something you can earn after completing objectives, implying the value and support your division is amassing through survival and success. Finally, you have dropships, meaning there is always a finite number of available dropships to deliver soldiers from, and you also have the landing pads, which are areas where the dropships can land. This ends up being a resource you have to control as well. This setup is made to desensitize the loss of any unit, as when they die, the resources they needed become instantly available, leaving you the opportunity to drop the same unit or spend the supplies on something else. However, this is not a cakewalk, and you will need to use your units efficiently and maneuver your squad as needed. The strategy inside the gameplay loops reside on unit composition, specification, and positioning. Your units cannot be standing in front of each other if they make up a considerable amount inside their squads, needing to form a line of fire or an area of engagement where every unit can fire comfortably and destroy your enemies. The roster for the mobile infantry is not limited to just combat troops, but also presenting a good variation of specialty units like engineers and rocket troopers. The roster for the mobile infantry is not limited to just combat troops, but also presenting a good variation of specialty units like engineers and rocket troopers. The entertainment comes from the necessary micromanagement of units to survive and effectively destroy special units. These require your primary attention, as they can kill your troops quickly, and you also have to consider the suppression of numerous but weaker enemies while maneuvering to destroy the stronger ones. This combination creates a spectacle reminiscent of the film, where your troops are always outnumbered and in some cases cut off from support, needing you to form a good degree of pre-planning and having a good degree of gameplay experience in order to increase survivability or to prolong the unit effectiveness. Despite your best intentions, the game is always putting the enemy ahead of you, requiring you to admit that even if you're more effective micromanaging the units, sometimes you are surrounded and are stretched thin, forcing you to sacrifice some soldiers and rebuild them in the base. Overall, the game is amazing and manages to capture the childish presentation of nationalism it intended from the films. leaving the gameplay quite a stark difference from the film adaptation's version of the combat, despite the aesthetic fidelity to the films. The game developers also announced a roadmap of free and paid-for content that will increase the replayability of the game, but will also add a storied campaign reminiscent of the launch story. If you're interested, just look at the roadmap they have in their community post on Steam or look it up on YouTube. In essence, Terran Command is a well-designed and engaging game that provides enough challenge and replayability for players of strategy games or fans of the series. However, if you fall around not having much interest in both, then I would say ignoring the product is best for you. If you enjoyed the game or already like the franchise, then consider reading the novel. It contains elements from the film, but the change is significant for it to be a stark difference in quality and outcome. And trust me, you will be pleasantly surprised at how well this novel is written and how much the film and these games, despite looking so good and being so attractive, can get so wrong and to some extent a lesser quality when compared to the novel. Have you guys played Terran Command? What do you think about it? If not, then are you interested now? Thanks for tuning in, guys. Leave a comment and subscribe.